The Bahrain Grand Prix produced exactly the sort of Formula One season opener we were all hoping for, with a great race-long battle between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen setting up a brilliant season. But that thrilling fight also turned into the first controversy of 2021, thanks to confusion around rules that meant Verstappen's pass for the lead was illegal, while Hamilton spent half the race deliberately going off track at the same corner. We know track limits are not everyone's favourite subject, but if the race itself has you excited for what this season has in store, then think about hitting the subscribe button so you can follow all the big stories of the year with us. Now let's get into a victory battle that had pretty much everything, starting with the row that's ended up stealing so much attention. The race was building to a dramatic conclusion as Hamilton had the lead but was on older tyres, and Verstappen was quickly catching. With 3 laps to go, Verstappen made his move, overtaking Hamilton with an around the outside pass at turn 4. But he completed that pass by running wide of the curb on the exit of the corner, and Red Bull quickly told him to hand the place back after an intervention from the officials. After the race, Verstappen knew that overtake had been against F1's normal rules, but he and his Red Bull team were frustrated because Hamilton had spent half the race going off track at the same corner without consequence. And judging by the outcry on social media, plenty of fans felt there'd been a case of double standards as well. The reason for the different treatment comes down to the FIA enforcing different rules than normal, changing them during the weekend itself, and crucially making it clear what was deemed to be gaining an advantage. Normally, the white line counts as the edge of the track, and part of the car must remain in contact with it. But sometimes the FIA tweaks these rules depending on the specific circuit. In Bahrain, the rules were that track limits would not be monitored at turn 4. But surprisingly, this was changed after first practice, so drivers would have their lap times deleted if they went off track, but only during the rest of practice and qualifying. For the race itself, track limits would not be monitored at turn 4, but theoretically, F1's rules would still be enforced. In Friday night's drivers' briefing with race director Michael Masi, the drivers were told explicitly that gaining a lasting advantage would be deemed as overtaking someone, and it was made clear that simply going off track at turn 4 would be okay. So the footage that shows Hamilton running wide at turn 4 for more than half the race was fine based on the rules applied for the event, but Verstappen using the runoff to complete an overtake was not. The bottom line is that the event-specific rules were implemented correctly. Neither Hamilton nor Verstappen were punished for exceeding track limits at turn 4, but Verstappen was for gaining a lasting advantage when he made the pass for the lead. Whether those rules were fit for purpose is another matter, especially as they meant that gaining a lap time advantage in the race was okay, but gaining track position wasn't. And the inconsistency didn't stop there. Many drivers and team bosses agreed it was confusing to have different rules for qualifying in the race, and the situation was complicated further by some suggesting that the rules changed mid-race as well. That appears to be supported by Red Bull telling Verstappen to use the runoff because Hamilton had been getting away with it. But then Mercedes were told by Masi that Hamilton needed to stop using the runoff as much as he was. Hamilton was instructed to be more careful or he'd risk getting a penalty, hence his post-race comments that the officials had changed their minds mid-race. And yet Masi claims that nothing changed at all, adding another regrettable layer of murkiness to a poorly handled situation. The spotlight on the turn 4 rules was a disappointing distraction from one of the best opening rounds in recent memory. A mix of strategic boldness from Mercedes and an inch-perfect balancing act by Hamilton won them a race they shouldn't have won. Verstappen had secured a comfortable pole position, but he was racing 2 Mercedes lined up right behind him on the grid, while his rear gunner Sergio Perez had struggled in qualifying, then ended up starting the race from the pit lane anyway after his engine cut out on the formation lap. In a straight fight, Mercedes wasn't going to beat Red Bull. The key move was bringing Hamilton in very early for the first stop. That was a real gamble, as controlling the heat-degrading tyres to get good stint lengths is not easy in Bahrain, but it bought Hamilton track position as he was able to undercut the early race leader. It guaranteed Hamilton a very difficult defensive final stint, with Verstappen chasing him down on fresher tyres and with a faster car. But around a windy Sakir circuit with the latest generation of aerodynamically nervous cars, that track position was key. By the time Verstappen was in DRS range and close enough to mount an attack, there were only 3 laps to go, which gave Hamilton half a chance at permanently repelling the Red Bull. And once Verstappen had handed the place he'd earned illegally back, he was struggling too much in the Mercedes wake and also had a big slide through turn 13, cooking his rear tyres. It used up whatever was left of his advantage and prevented him from launching a final attack, giving Hamilton and Mercedes the win. Even though that outcome felt all too familiar, it's encouraging for the season that Verstappen had the faster car, and this was as much an underdog victory as Mercedes has ever had in the V6 engine era. It's certainly something of a novelty for Mercedes not to win by sheer bulldozing performance superiority, and it's clear that the Red Bull Honda challenge it faces this season is very real. But what do you make of the season opener? Was it clouded at all by the nonsense around turn 4, and who's your early favourite for the title? Let us know in the comments below, and give this video a like if you enjoyed it, even if you hate track limits.